Welcome to Ahead of the Game, a podcast brought to you by the Digital Marketing Institute. I'm your host, Will Francis, and today I'll be talking to Neil McKenzie, all about marketing for the tourism sector. Neil is the CEO of Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism, based in the easternmost part of Canada. With many years of experience in destination marketing, this gives us a chance to look at what the specific challenges of that industry in terms of digital marketing are, what works best, and what lessons that Neil's learned along the way. Neil, welcome to the podcast.
I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you. We haven't actually spoken to anyone who specialises in destination marketing or tourism marketing, and it's lovely to have the chance to talk about particularly what you do, because you live and work in such a beautiful area. Just set the scene for us. What kind of tourism takes place there? What kind of place is it? What kind of destination is it?
Sure. So thanks again for having me. And yes, to describe our destination, which is a lot of what I do, and I can talk your ear off on all the beautiful things in Nova Scotia. Most tourism marketers can certainly we're really good at moving our hands around and talking about experiences you can have in our destinations. But Yarmouth and Acadian Shores is really the southernmost point in Nova Scotia, which is the easternmost province in Canada. Technically Newfoundland is, but Nova Scotia is one of the Atlantic provinces, or what we call the Maritimes of Canada. We definitely have a chip on our shoulder, and we feel that much attention for the rest of Canada is given to beautiful places like the Rockies and other places. But we've been working hard as a province and as smaller destinations like myself to really build awareness and bring attention to the beautiful place that Nova Scotia is, and certainly Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. And so the things that we have here, we have Nova Scotia has the beautiful Bay of Fundy on one side, which is some of the world's highest tides, and we have whales and fin whales and humpback whales and beautiful nature and that type of thing on I guess the southwest side of the province, which certainly touches on areas that we're in. And then we also have the Gulf of Maine just to the south of us, and then the Atlantic Ocean on the other side, and neighbors like you across the ocean, or across the pond, as we would say. So it's just a really very much influenced by the ocean, by nature, by our biggest industry here is actually fishing, specifically lobster, not tourism. Tourism is secondary to our lobster industry in our area, but tourism for the province of Nova Scotia is actually, pre-pandemic was actually the biggest industry in the province. So we're known for our beautiful landscapes and welcoming culture and nature, and a lot of history that's certainly connected to England and France and indigenous people as well, of course, that were the first folks here, and the original inhabitants of the land, the Mi'kmaq.
What am I packing on a trip over there?
Well, it depends on when you come, and I guess that's something we could talk about later. But we're really trying to push Nova Scotia as a year-round destination, and not just a traditional time to visit would be the summertime, between July and September. But if you're coming in the spring, it's quite warm. So I was out for an hour walk today, and with a t-shirt and shorts on, and quite beautiful. And this time of year, basically from June until September, October can be very beautiful as well. We have really, really moderate climate, and actually within Nova Scotia, this part of the province tends to be a bit warmer than the northern part. So Nova Scotia is kind of on a southwest perspective, and sometimes we brand ourselves as the banana belt of Nova Scotia. We actually have a really growing wine industry in the valley area of Nova Scotia. Some folks are actually growing wine in our area as well, which you just wouldn't associate. Probably, I don't know if you know that Nova Scotia actually has a wine industry. And
No, I don't associate it with that. But it looks very fertile, I will say that. So I can imagine that those sort of things are possible. So tell me a bit about who your audience is from a marketing point of view. I mean, for a start, is it all B2C? Is there an element of B2B?
Yes. So most of it, a lot of it's B2C. So we're marketing. The U.S. is our biggest market, and now that travel restrictions have been lifted and the U.S.-Canada border is open for unrestricted travel, We're certainly leveraging that opportunity as much as possible because the Northeast U.S. is our biggest market traditionally, and certainly the consumer and pleasure traveler. So someone traveling for leisure is what our biggest market is, as opposed to the largest city in Nova Scotia. They do a lot of business travel as well, but business travel has obviously been hugely impacted by the pandemic and people's mindsets and how they think and want to move around. But really, our market is Northeast U.S. from a consumer perspective, and then also Atlantic Canada, Ontario, and Quebec. If we looked at geographically, and age groups we're looking at tends to be 25 and older. We position our product to kind of grab at those types of folks that are looking for history and culture and outdoor experiences. And then light adventure is kind of something we utilize too, in culinary tourism. I mentioned wine earlier. We also have lots of beer and breweries in Nova Scotia. Craft beer is a real growing huge industry in the province.
So there's quite a few things going on there. Do you utilize something like content pillars? Do you have key themes? You talked about light adventure in a way that I sense that's probably a content pillar for you. And it sounds like you've got other ones. Is that how you think about your content output?
Yes. So that's a great question. So we do have content or pillars we like to always try to ground ourselves against. So one is Acadian culture. So we do have, I myself am not Acadian, but we do have a lot of Acadians living in this area, French-speaking people who originally descended from France and were actually expelled from the province in the 1700s with the English. So France and England were often at war, as we all know, and they often fought over this part of the country. So there's a lot of history and Acadians that actually live here, and they have very strong culture, food, music, art, everything. It's really beautiful. And we leverage the living culture of the Acadians that is here. That's a story that the Americans very much like learning about. We also leverage our seafaring heritage. So I mentioned earlier about fishing and our fishing industry, and lobster is really huge. So so not only is lobster or fishing, and seafaring heritage and the history that's related to that, and we can articulate that through museums and tours and experiences. We have a brand new experience here where you can climb a lighthouse right to the top of Cape Verschool Lighthouse. It's 77 steps, something that was never able to be done, and something that we actually launched during the pandemic. But that touches on seafaring heritage. But the location itself was discovered by Samuel de Champlain, French explorer, and also has an Acadian connection. And then we also leverage. So seafaring heritage and Acadian culture can definitely overlap, but we try to look at those as two separate pillars and try to create content and marketing around them. And one of the real cool things that we're really trying to own and take ownership of is astrotourism. So we wouldn't really use the term astrotourism with visitors. We would say something like starlight or stargazing or the dark skies, for example. But we have an area here that's been designated by the International Starlight Foundation as a dark skies reserve and dark skies tourism destination. So and that designation took real money and effort and resources to actually get. And what it does is establishes this area in the province of Nova Scotia as an area where you actually can have amazing stargazing experiences, and we have tourism and operators and product that's been positioned around leveraging that resource or that designation.
One way to describe the internet is like this massive patchwork quilt of niches, right? And one way to describe content marketing is about finding these quite small but very specific niches and resonating incredibly strongly with them in the ways you're talking about. So you're right that the dark sky thing and the designation has a place in the world that has very little light pollution is a way for you to connect with this quite random sounding audience at first, but in a very specific way that resonates very strongly with them. And then you can kind of build a wider story around that, why you might want to take like a full-blown your annual holiday there and build a trip around that. So that is interesting how I think a lot of destination marketers probably have to think about that. And I suppose that's one of the big challenges with what you do, isn't it?
Trying to position product and content, I guess, that, one of the things is too, we actually have to develop content. So, we're doing it in the actual real world. So, we have places where you can do stargazing or, talk to a real fisherman on the wharf or eat, fresh lobster. But though, one of the things we always have to do as a destination marketing organization is also work with partners directly to try to build tourism product and experiences that will keep people here, because we are a growing destination. We've really only been doing destination marketing here really focused from a focused perspective for about 10 years. Prior to that, we were just seen as kind of the way into the province because we have an international ferry to Bar Harbor now. It actually just started last week. And it's a high-speed catamaran ferry that goes to Bar Harbor, Maine. And that's our main connection and our biggest market opportunity. So we do have a lot of similarities to Maine, but some things that we try to leverage is obviously Starlight, Acadian tourism, the Canadian, the Canadianness and the differences that are here. Certainly, Americans can their dollar goes a bit further here now for sure. So these are all positive things, and the whole area has always been kind of built. Like we have probably more hotels here than would seem normal for a small town and a small community, but it's because we've always had that Americans flowing into the province to do other areas and go to other places in the province. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. So what's interesting about what you're doing, and I think what a lot of destination marketers have done, is you've started to harness tourists and their content in the form of user-generated content and UGC, and that's become quite a central part of your output. Tell me how that's played a role and the effect that that's had on your output.
Sure, that's a great question as well, and we're big fans of UGC, and we leverage it in lots of ways. And I think probably the only challenge we have right now is that sometimes we just don't have the people power to actually leverage all the opportunities that come with UGC. We use a program called CrowdRiff, and they were brought to our attention through a partnership with Destination Canada, who provided some support and basically a partnership with them for other DMOs like ourselves. So if we installed this content, or it's basically, CrowdRiff is a UGC aggregator, so it allows you to follow and pull in content from content creators and influencers that you want to follow, and allows you to publish that content on your, in an email newsletter, in a traditional print media, and certainly on your website. So we've really leveraged it, and it's just been great for engagement, holding people on our site. It's still one of our biggest items that people engage with on our website, and it certainly has helped our time on site.
What kind of content are you talking about here?
So images mostly. So it's, we're following, for example, if you were an influencer, which you are, but if you were a tourism, a traveler that we wanted to follow, we would set you up in the CrowdRiff app, which is an online program, and then we would say, okay, we're going to follow you on these platforms, and then your content automatically flows into a large gallery. We can then sort your content based on our content goals. So if you're happen to be traveling here and you eat a beautiful lobster dinner, then we're going to probably grab that content if it looks good, and we're going to place it into a folder or a gallery specific to culinary tourism. And the same thing if you did an Acadian experience or a night sky experience. And so what we do is we build these galleries, and then we publish these galleries on different parts of our website. And as people trust UGC or content more than branded content that someone like myself as a marketer would create from a DMO's perspective. They certainly don't disagree with it, but there's a higher, it's my experience that there's a higher a trust value based on someone like Will traveling to Nova Scotia, and then he has a great experience in Nova Scotia, and he's sharing that with your followers. People trust that more than me telling them that it's going to be a great experience. So That's one of the ways we use it, and we'll publish these galleries all over the place. We'll even have specific galleries to specific operators. So, if you were a hotel operator in our area, or let's say you offered a tourism hike, a tourism experience, you would exist on our website as a tourism operator, and we would have a specific CrowdRiff gallery that was associated with your content. And the CrowdRiff galleries offer things like call to actions that we can customize. We can also have automated requests to request the rights to images, which has really been great. So, one of the big spends that we have as a DMO is not only are we harvesting UGC content, but we're also paying people to produce high-level video and photography, and or time lapses and all sorts of things. And but all this content is out there, and often you just have to ask, hey, do you mind if we use that? We would like to use your photo. It's really beautiful. And our experience is most people will say, sure, just credit me for the image, or they don't even say that. They're just saying, sure, you can use it. And so there's even automation within CrowdRiff that allows us to reach out to creators and ask for rights permissions to use their content, and then we have content that we can use in other channels. And
that's cool. I've not come across that functionality before. That automation of that request, because in our market here in the UK and Ireland, we've seen UGC blow up for tourism brands, but also just for a lot of consumer brands, because just like you say, they've become switched on to the fact that A, people trust other people, and B, it just takes a hell of a lot of work off the marketing team. They're getting better images, really more relevant images than they would have created anyway, to be honest. I wonder why so many brands are leaning on that now. Like, my theory is that it's two things. It's that phone cameras have gotten really good, but also your average consumer has become more media savvy, and everyone, particularly everyone under the age of 30, is essentially some sort of influencer, even if a nano influencer, and they just know how to take photos and videos of things, and we're more aware in that way.
I think so. I think that there's just so much content out there, and that you're bound to get something that's just amazing that someone who may not even consider themselves a professional is taking. People, like you said, they know how to position themselves to take a photo of a sunset or a sunrise.
Do you elicit it? Because I know in Tourism Ireland, I think, do a really good job of this, and they have this thing which is quite common, which in their bio it says, tag us and use this hashtag to be featured, and it operates very much as what we call a feature account on Instagram, where it is just all reposted featured content, but they very much kind of promote that. Do you do that?
We have a call to action on our website, basically, that says tag us to be featured, but we don't have a specific we'll sometimes reshare content on our Instagram or Facebook, but we don't have a specific account that's just UGC on Instagram, but we do feature anyone's content. We have homepage galleries, and then we have specific galleries for our operators. So some of the things that we often have to do is we have to push our operators to push good content too. So and tell their patrons to tag those restaurants so that we can see that and then pull that into their listings as well. So but it's just a simple thing, like you said, asking people to tag, Visit Island or Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. And then people are like, okay, and they see value in being featured on that content. So then you're getting this amazing UGC that you often can get rights to and haven't had to pay anything for, other than the cost to run CrowdRiff and the team, etc. But you're not intrinsically paying directly for every image. Sometimes we do, but it's still great contacts, and it helps local photographers and content creators that are trying to get off the ground. But it's been really good for us.
And has that escalated to working with what we would more traditionally call influencers?
Yes. So Tourism Nova Scotia, which is the larger provincial DMO for Nova Scotia, it's basically responsible for driving business to the entire province. They have a program that they partner with smaller DMOs like mine, and we find influencers that have audiences and content that align with the products, those pillars that you talked about earlier, with different destinations. So, some so the influencers we have are very much into nature and stargazing and light adventure, etc. And that's the types we try to bring in. We bring in people, influencers that are French or have bilingual, that can be bilingual and actually produce content in French as well, because we like to also promote that. And so definitely, yeah, we find influencers that align with our content and want to experience our the things that we have to offer, but that also have significant audiences. And we've been quite successful. We haven't worked with, people that have millions of followers, but we've certainly worked with people that have, tens of thousands. And when everyone's been really trapped in Nova Scotia, not trapped, that's kind of a hard word, but when hasn't been able to travel outside of Canada for so long, the influencers that we had in the province were actually really great. And a lot of them had never been here. So as small of a province as Nova Scotia is, there's still lots of people that haven't experienced, Yarmouth and Acadian shores, and there's influencers too. So it really helped us reach their audience in Nova Scotia and then drive some business our way during the pandemic.
That's really good. I mean, to be honest, you talk about you didn't use influencers with millions of followers, but there's been a real shift away from that, it seems, in recent years. And, towards micro influencers, that's been a big buzzword. And for so many reasons, they can be a lot more fruitful, really, to work with. They're easier to work with. You can have direct conversations and collaborations. It's not just going through some agent and paying for a post or something like that, right? It feels more collaborative. You can have a conversation, bounce ideas around, and it matters more to them. They're a bit more invested, and I think you just get more for your money. You reach more relevant audiences because they're smaller, tighter audiences. So there's a long list of reasons why that's a good thing, particularly for niche things that form your pillars. So that makes a lot of sense to me, for sure. Hello, a quick reminder from me that if you're enjoying our podcast series, why not become a member of the DMI so that you can enjoy loads more content, from webinars and case studies to toolkits and more real-life insights from the world of digital marketing. Head to digitalmarketinginstitute.com/ahead of the game to sign up for free. Now back to the podcast. So thinking about UGC, if I worked in tourism in a different part of the world, and I said, "Oh yeah, Neil, this sounds great, this UGC lark. What do I do? Like, how do I get started with getting some value out of that for my destination?" What would you tell me?
Well, one of the things that really saved us was that before we had this latest iteration of our website, which has an online store and is much more responsive, and it's built with proper research and SEO and all those things in mind. We actually had our existing website, obviously, but it was really at the point where I was trying to figure out, okay, I need some budget because we have to build a new website. It's just not cutting it anymore. But what we had done in the meantime is we had installed CrowdRiff and started building that content and knowledge and experience with that product and that tool. And that really saved our engagement metrics and our time on site, and really continued to keep people on our website, even though I think our website was at that point nearing its end of its life. It gave us the opportunity to learn how to use it well and do some interesting things with it. And I'm not even touching on all the things that CrowdRiff can do. And I don't work for CrowdRiff. That's my experience with that tool. There are other UGC aggregators out there that we've looked at as well. But it's if I were somebody that wanted to get into this, I would reach out to those companies. They all offer demos. They'll have somebody that will speak to you and do one-on-one consultation and say, okay, here's how you could leverage it. Here's the return on investment you can look at. Here's innovative ways that other places are doing it. So, and we're, again, I think the only limit with UGC that we have is this, our imaginations and because it does still require work to leverage it. It's not fully automated. You have to manage it. You have to look at things. You have to still, use it as a tool. It's a tool, and it works as well as you can. But there are some automation tools in there. There are call to actions. There is some great metrics, trackable, measurable things that we can see. And you can also, there's, for example, one of the things it does is that you can have galleries that automate images within the gallery based on how much engagement those images are getting. So when you go to our website, if if you engage with some of those images, you click on them and then maybe go to or click on the call to action, etc., and then come back again, you may see the gallery in a different way smart. Because it actually will automate. You can there's different tools within CrowdRiff that you can basically automate. So and that's smart. And that's one of the things I learned a lot in taking the course with DMI was how much we need to really leverage automation, certainly in our email marketing, and also with UGC too. So the sky's the limit with this type of thing. And but really the limit for us is just people power and our imagination and time, because it can save you time, but I feel there's always something else we could be doing because it's such a great tool.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it. You can only do so much, but it sounds like, yeah, you're saying that to get into UGC and really leverage, get the most value out of it, it's about getting a good tool like that and then really learning what it's capable of and trying to get the most out of what you're paying for it, really, because it sounds like they do some pretty kind of intelligent stuff. I like that. So this all sounds lovely, what you're talking about. How do you measure it? How do you know it's working? How do you know it's successful? How do you define that success?
So again, our benefits, I guess, from a tool perspective, we measure the success of it just by the simply fact that we know we're spending less. We could spend more on producing content directly ourselves. We know how much it costs to produce a 30-second video, or hire a photographer to produce, for us to get 15 beautiful images. It's 3 days of shooting and coordination and time. And we might get close to the same with this tool. So we can certainly measure it from the perspective of, here's what it would have cost us to grab this content if we weren't using CrowdRiff, and the savings it provides us. We measure it by how much engagement and the engagement rate and time on site metrics that we have with regards to the galleries. We know that those galleries hold people there. They're still one of our top items on our website that's engaged with on each one of our operators pages, and certainly on our different galleries. We use them in email marketing, and we theme them around seasons and events and other things. So we can do a lot of specific things. It's not just something we create and just leave there.
Just to really bring it back to reporting and measurement, I always like to think of the marketing funnel. Love the funnel. It, for me, just really nicely frames like, what are we doing here? What's the point of me coming to work today? Because we want to drive awareness by telling people who've never heard of what we do, that we exist. I want to drive consideration, get people thinking about it more, get them engaging with us, and then I want to drive some sort of conversion. So a lot of what you're doing sounds like it's driving more awareness and perhaps more engagement as well. What is that final metric? What is ultimate success that gets talked about there?
You're absolutely right, and it's very wise of you to see that. I would love sometimes, and as a DMO, because we kind of get tired sometimes of just telling people we exist and where we are and where we are in Nova Scotia. But it's also a positive thing. It used to be when I would tell people or show people beautiful images from our location, they would say, "Where's that?" And I would say, "That's Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, or that's Yarmouth and Acadian Shores. That's our beautiful Tuscan Islands. That's our lighthouse. That's X, Y, or Z." And they used to say things like, "Why would I want to go to Yarmouth?" or "Why would I want to live there?" or "What's down there? There's nothing to do." And now they're saying, in my anecdotal conversations with people, they're saying things like, "I've never been there. I have to get down there. It looks really beautiful." And to me, I see that as just an everyday word of mouth that's getting, information that's getting spread around, that people are seeing it. But we're definitely, I guess to circle back, we're definitely in the awareness level of the funnel and certainly within the interest.
Because you're not selling something, you're not driving. I mean, are you driving any referrals to accommodation providers or anything like that?
That is one of our key metric on our website, that we would see that as click-throughs to operators. That's
quite close to, it's not a conversion, but it's further down, isn't it? That shows quite strong intent to plan a trip.
That's the best conversion we can do is say, okay, Will, we've created some marketing. It's attracted Will to our website. Will is now on our website and has found a hotel or an experience that he wants to do, and he's clicked, and now he's off to book that experience with them. That's the best we feel we can do within that funnel and that whole consumer journey.
Like you say, I suppose for you, it's about looking at metrics and building a case in some way and putting certain metrics together in a certain way that would indicate that it's all going in the right direction, right?
Yeah, organic traffic is one thing we're looking at now, and we've seen that grow. So we say that's definitely within. To me, that's a measure of the awareness that is turning, so that we're getting more people that are searching for us, or hearing about us, or seeing our content somewhere, and that's triggering them to search for us. So that is growing, and we see that as a key measure of what we're doing. Again, we talked about the level and the volume of UGC. We talk about the number of people that are actually staying here, and our experience providers provide numbers to us too, and they'll say, okay, I'm having a good year, here's the numbers, or people aren't staying, or people aren't coming, and I certainly can't just shrug my shoulders and say, well, that's not on me, I can't. We're doing our best. We have to try as hard as we can. But unfortunately, we that is something that we all think about, is that we can't ever really truly say, once we've sent that lead off to you, Will, as a hotel operator, for example, I can't see that room was booked and how long they stayed and how much they spent, if they had breakfast in the hotel or ordered room service or any of those things. That's up to the operator at that point.
I mean, have you toyed with the idea of doing some sort of like being an affiliate, so basically being like a booking.com affiliate and pushing people towards bookings with affiliate platforms like that? Is that ever, or is that not, would that not feel appropriate?
One of the things we do with, we have a local levy group, which is a hotel levy. So basically you stay in Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, and hopefully someday you'll visit us. You'll pay $2 Canadian on your hotel bill, not for every location, not in an Airbnb, for example, but in a specific hotel. We have 5 that are partners, so that would show that you're a visitor outside the area, because it's obviously only paid on consumers, but visitors, for example. But one of the things we do, we have a team on our international ferry, for example, that we have found through experience that a lot of people who come across on the ferry, they just haven't considered their hotels. They just assume that they're going to be able to book a hotel once they get here, and that's often not the case.
What, they just get on an international ferry without a hotel booked?
They will sometimes, yeah. They'll say, we're just going to get something to eat, and we're just going to get a hotel, and many book this stuff well ahead, but others will just kind of wing it, and we try to help them, so we'll book those rooms for them, or we'll call the hotel and directly do it. So we track those numbers, how many actual people we spoke to, what we counseled them on, and where we told them to go. So there's other places in Nova Scotia, obviously, that people want to go that are very beautiful, and we track where we're sending people or recommending they go. And but we also directly help guests book rooms in our local hotels if they're looking for a place to stay. And then we also, of course, have that metric. But we don't use online travel agents. Like we don't work with those guys so much, because we found that certainly people are using that. But one of the things that's happening is that the inventory that is sold to an OTA by a local hotel is not all of the inventory that they have. But if somebody is on an international ferry, they'll just check and say, oh, well, the hotel's sold out, there's no more rooms. But in actuality, there are rooms. It's just that the inventory that's been sold to the OTA is sold out. So unfortunately, someone like booking.com or another OTA will say, oh, there's no rooms available. And then the person will just move on to a different hotel when there's empty rooms sitting there. So we find the direct conversation and also trying to spread that message is key.
Yeah, no, I get that. We're over 2 years past the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. How do you see the travel industry picking up again after that, and how's it changed?
Well, certainly, I think people are looking for safe destinations, and Nova Scotia is certainly a place that is, I think, still has a really positive brand, hopefully around the world. But I can say certainly in the U.S. and Northeast U.S., Nova Scotia is still seen as a very safe place to go, both from a COVID perspective and just a personal safety perspective. So I think people are thinking about that. I think what's changed with the pandemic too is that we also have to think about destination sentiment. So this behavior and this thinking wasn't really something that we thought about that much in our area, because we're taking baby steps and we're just still trying to really grow this destination. Again, very much in the awareness level, as you mentioned. And so we weren't really considering what locals thought, or as considering it as much as we should, maybe, what they thought about visitors coming. We were always just marketing ourselves and promoting ourselves as very hospitable and welcoming, and we still are. But some of that thinking has changed during COVID. People have other fear. It did certainly during the pandemic, and when things were really, really going strong, and we're still dealing with it. There is different feelings locally and around the world, I imagine, certainly in Nova Scotia, with how people want to welcome visitors. Overwhelmingly, though, Nova Scotians are very welcoming and want to welcome guests to Nova Scotia now. And we see a huge amount of pent-up demand in the U.S. Demand for travel's high. There's a lot of interest in the types of experiences we have here, and we think tourism is really roaring back. Certainly, the times that we've been in the U.S. with myself and my team over the past 3 or 4 months, we've seen a lot of demand, and Americans are looking to travel, and we know Canadians are too, and hopefully some folks from overseas will start arriving too, because we have direct flights right into Halifax again. Halifax, Nova Scotia, and they can come and visit us. So we think it's roaring back. We think that's where it's going to go and continue. And the challenge now is really labor. A lot of people have left the industry. They've moved on to other sectors, and now now that we have all this business, we don't have enough people to actually take advantage of it. That's the challenge we're really dealing with now on the ground.
Haven't more people moved there in search of a more remote place to live, perhaps?
Lots of Canadians in Ontario and other parts of the Nova Scotia, Canada, have moved to Nova Scotia. So we've seen a big influx of other Canadians moving to Nova Scotia because of the quality of life here, and the fact that they can sell a home in British Columbia or Ontario for a lot, and then their money goes a really long way in Nova Scotia.
Yes, yeah, no, we've seen the same thing definitely happen in our part of the world as well. Zoom towns. These kind of beautiful country towns that are full of digital nomads doing their job. Just before you go as well, tell us a little bit about your experience studying DMIPRO that you recently did. How did that go?
I really liked it. I learned a lot from it. It was really extensive, and I felt it was a really good for someone like me who's been doing tourism marketing, but I'm not an expert and I don't have all the answers, and the course itself is not specific to tourism, for example. So it forced me to think about consumer behavior and all the other things associated in that program, content, and the Google Ads piece was really great for me because we use that a lot. We do a lot of stuff with the display network. Social, we're big on social. One of the things that it taught me too is that we really need to take advantage of automation as much as possible, and I intend to make some changes with our organization to try to do more of that, certainly with email and other things, and to just think more about trying to push people further down the funnel. I think is really important too, because we are often stuck in this awareness and interest level, but there are ways to, as a DMO, when we're responsible for doing it, marketing a destination and not any one specific person more than another, there are still ways that we can find real measurable ways to figure out that if the work we're doing can be attributed to what we're our marketing. So
yeah, that is so important. That's cool. That's good to hear. One last question for you: what are your top tips for other travel marketers out there? If you really had to distill and think of them as bullet points in your head, what would they be?
The pandemic has taught all of us that there are markets closer to home that can actually produce results. So when Nova Scotians couldn't travel other than in Nova Scotia, we saw people coming here that had never been here and were really impressed. And I know that I had family and other people travel around the province and were really impressed by the other parts. So discovering your own backyard, I know that's probably a term that was overused in tourism during the pandemic, but it's still an opportunity. we've learned that, the markets in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada are valuable markets for us, and something that we were probably underutilizing prior to the pandemic. So I would say one tip would be to, don't just assume markets that you're not in are, put away forever and leave them on a shelf. Maybe open that book once in a while and take a look and say, what is the logic that says we're not in this market? How could this market align with some of our pillars, for example, as you mentioned? I think another one would be flexible, and to really understand that travel has changed. Certainly business travel has changed. What people are looking for in a destination from a safety perspective and from consumer confidence perspective, I think is key. You have to have that mindset, put yourself in the consumer shoes, the traveler shoes. As a destination marketer, things around us are very familiar to us and not that special sometimes, but really kind of think from the perspective of a visitor is key. You can't assume that a sign that makes sense to you is going to make sense to a visitor. You can't assume that because the address in your content or that the content is obvious to you where it is that it's obvious to somebody else. So keep thinking from a traveler's perspective. I think from a DMO again perspective, have some differentiators, have some marketing pillars. Do that market research to differentiate your brand, and then stick to it. Work with your partners and figure out, okay, what can we do that's sustainable, that will differentiate us from all the other places in Canada and Nova Scotia, if possible. Keep going back to your pillars, have a marketing plan, have a brand strategy, and keep building it. And I think that's really helped us certainly move along. And from a DMO, again, we're a local organization. So when you're trying to market a destination, I think you have to get your partners on side. So they have to understand what you're trying to do. They have to understand your messaging. They can be huge advocates for you if they're using the same kind of language and positioning for their product that you're trying to do. They grow audiences. They have customer interactions and touch points in their everyday. That's going to build your brand and support you too. So
yeah, that's good advice. Thanks, Neil. Just before I let you go, remind our listeners where they can connect with you and find you online.
Well, they can certainly visit our website, yarmouthandacadianshores.com. So the Yarmouth, A-N-D, Acadianshores.com. And they can find everything that you and I were talking about today with regards to the destination. And they can find me on LinkedIn, and just type in Neil Mackenzie and Yarmouth and Acadian Shores, and you'll find me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, thanks. I will do that. And Neil, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was very interesting to hear your perspective on this stuff, and very valuable to our listeners, no doubt. But yeah, thanks very much.
Well, it was excellent to be here. It's interesting to me to be talking to you in person when you were actually part of my course. So when you see an instructor and you're kind of like, yeah. Who is this person? Now I'm actually talking to you. So I very much enjoyed learning from you and the whole DMI process, and it's great to talk to you. And I really appreciate the interest in our destination and in Nova Scotia. And you're welcome anytime to come over here. Please give us a call, and we'll show you around for sure, and you'll love it.
Oh, thanks so much. I can't wait. Cheers, Neil. Take care. See ya.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information about transforming your marketing career through certified online training, head to digitalmarketinginstitute.com. Thanks for listening.